Episode 7. You're always the asshole in someone's story.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And another good morning to you, kitty cats. How have you been? I hope you've been well. It's been a totally insane kind of start of the week. I hope that you're doing as good as I am. And you're probably wondering, first of all, where does being an asshole fit into the categories of health, wealth, and or happiness? And I'm not quite sure myself. Let's try and figure this one out. I would immediately say that it's more towards the mental health aspect. I think that's quite accurate. Maybe also we have the wealth aspect, because a lot of people who are insanely wealthy are, at least from a character perspective, assholes, or sociopaths or whatever. I think we addressed that in the episode about the presumed alpha beta males a few episodes back. What came to my attention, though, was kind of like the blame game that always goes on. And I got the idea for this episode based on an experience I had when I was working in Russia a few years ago. Now, this was the time of the Crimea annexation, or whatever it was, a referendum. Let's call it what it actually was. I'll have to look that up and get back to you later because the details are really kind of washed away. However, what was really interesting was, despite all of the efforts of the Western media to frame Vladimir Putin as this evil supervillain, coming to Russia, it was like the dude was being glorified, and justifiably so, by the arguments brought forth by the locals. Now, this guy was the only one who was able to kind of hold this place together for years on end, rather than his predecessor, Boris Yeltsin, who kind of let everybody with a certain amount of wealth run amok and do whatever they want. And Putin was the guy to really put stability back into the country after a very, very long and dark age that they had in the Soviet Union and in the post-Soviet era, in which the sick Anglo-capitalistic visions of a Jeffrey Sachs and all of those people were supposed to be implemented. And the majority of the population really suffered and was really fucked over by Western expectations to be implemented on a society that had no experience whatsoever with capitalism and had to really learn how to work with it. And there were a lot of quick adapters, mostly or to a degree affiliated with the underworld, who had understood the concept of capitalism very quickly and benefited generously from that, to a degree where some of those oligarchs, as they're also referred to, became the richest people on the planet, or some of the richest people on the planet. And long story short, Putin kind of put order back into the chaos that Yeltsin had left behind. Long story short, Putin was being framed as the asshole. And on the other hand, I heard that, or on the other side of the former Iron Curtain, I think, wow, that was quite metaphorical. You had a totally different opinion. Now, this is larger than life, of course, because this is international global politics and PR campaigns and smear campaigns and anti-disinformation campaigns and information warfare. I think as an overall term would be quite adequate to use here. That being said, the same kind of behavior kind of reflects into your personal, or might reflect or might enter your personal life as well. And it did so for me on several occasions, right? But why is it that you are always someone's asshole, and who is really prone to becoming victim to smear campaigns? I think that's the question worth addressing here. What I noticed in my previous lives was that I always used to really, really, really take great pride in wearing branded clothing by Tommy Hilfiger, Hugo Boss, Wolfgang Joop, all of the kind of, to me, affordable designers. And I would spend shitloads of money on clothes, and at times had north of $15,000 to $20,000 at once in my closet. And after a certain point in my life, I think it was after I left the insurance industry, I kind of laid back and traded in the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 suit for comfortable jeans, a comfortable shirt, maybe, and if you were lucky, you would see me in a sports coat. Otherwise, it was probably jeans, turtleneck, and my dearly beloved Doc Martens boots. And I started noticing that because I didn't have the corporate uniform on anymore, people were being more relaxed towards me. They weren't so uptight, and they didn't think that I was a formal person that they were talking to, but they were kind of like in a more relaxed mode. And it made it insanely much easier to talk to me directly. Now, don't take this as a kind of removal of respect from a person, but it made me more approachable. Therefore, people could directly engage me rather than talking behind my back to other people about what type of person I am and making assumptions, because the uniform was kind of, even though it wasn't a uniform per se, but it was, a suit is nothing more or nothing less than a uniform at the end of the day. Makes you present yourself in a certain amount of respect, etc., etc., etc. Now, losing the suit was really an interesting experience because, again, as I mentioned, you immediately become more laid back, more chilled out. And on the other hand, it's this social experiment, I think it was, if anything, was that it was totally interesting to see how you were treated differently at a border crossing, for instance, or at the airport, right? The moment I kind of left the suit at home, you were treated with a totally different attitude by a lot of people that worked there with a double-digit IQ and a triple-digit income. It was totally insane. Let me give you an example. I was flying out of, I think it was Brussels. I was on a project there, and I flew back home for the weekend. And I was in my suit, obviously, because I just left the client's offices, went to the airport, sat on a plane, and boom, was home a bit later. And a week later, I was with a client again, flew home, but this time on a Friday because I had kind of missed the last flight out of Brussels. And I took the first flight in the morning, and I was wearing rather civil clothing. I was wearing, I think, a pair of jeans, my Doc Martens boots. Obviously, I even wear them to a gala, to my tuxedo, to complete the outfit, and jeans and whatnot. I think I was wearing maybe a shirt, probably could be, and a vest and a scarf. And that's how I approached airport security. I was still the same person, right? But it felt totally differently. And I can't even tell you why. First of all, when I arrived, it wasn't the usual, there you go, sir. You're finished, just unpack your laptop and your iPad. And it was like you were looked at differently. You were approached differently by the security personnel. And this was the first time at Brussels airport, and I had done lots of flights out of there. It was the first time in forever that I had to take my shoes off because they were assuming that I was, I don't know, hiding a bomb or whatever not. And this just because I wasn't formally dressed, but dressed a little bit more relaxed. Now, I wasn't looking like a bum or anything. At least I don't think so. But take the outfit plus long blonde hair, and you're like, okay, we may have to keep a distance here. So that being said, I think one of the most important things to take away is to free yourself from these valued possessions or supposedly valued possessions with brand names on it, because it takes away attack surface for people that enjoy to talk about you rather than to you. And when you actually have made this step, right, and you've dropped the suit and you've dropped the modern watch that has no real value, but just because it's got a brand name on it, it was sold to you for a price, and you were suckered severely. I think then you kind of figure out that, or you learn that people will find you more approachable, talk to you rather than about you. And by that, you reduce the number of times that you're the asshole in someone's story. At least that's my experience. In that sense, have a good night. With your hands above the blanket, preferably. And if you're in a time zone that it's morning, I wish you a totally insanely successful day. And I will see you next episode, but I won't leave you without asking for your feedback, both positive and negative, to the very best podcast in the world at gmail.com. See you soon, guys.